Could Chinese agriculture be in trouble? Potentially. Hey guys, Fergus here with weathermapping.com, a Marcus Weather Inc. product. So, why could Chinese agriculture be in trouble? Well, not because this is forecast screaming historic cold, but because winter wheat in the North China Plain is coming off a really poor start and remains very sensitive to any sharp cold outbreak, and there could be some issues in the future. In this video, I'm using two maps for the next 15 days across East Asia, focusing on China, the lowest forecast overnight, and the average low temperature departure from normal. First, let's look at lowest minimum temperature. This is really simple. For each location, we look across the full 15-day window and pick the coldest overnight low that shows up at any point. It doesn't tell you which day it happens, it just tells you the lowest that it will be throughout that time period. The second map is minimum temperature departure, which means how the overnight low pattern compares to what's typical for this time of year. A positive number means overnight lows are forecast to be warmer than normal, and a negative number would mean it'd be colder than normal. Let's have a quick real-world example. If a place normally bottoms out at -8 degrees Celsius overnight in mid-February, and the forecast is calling for -5 overnight, that's a +3 degrees centigrade departure. It's still below freezing, but it's less harsh than what it would typically be. Why this matters for agriculture, and especially winter wheat. Winter wheat damage risk is often tied to cold thresholds and exposure time, not daytime highs. Overnight lows are when freeze injury happens, when crown tissue can be stressed, and when sort of poorly established strands are most vulnerable. And the lowest low in the 15 days is a really clean way to kind of assess whether damage due to cold could be on the table. So let's have a look at the large scale pattern. Looking at the departure map first, the broad signal is that much of China is actually going to be running warmer than normal overnight through this 15-day window. Large areas show roughly +1 to +4 degrees C anomaly, and there are pockets that are a little higher inland. That's important. It suggests that the background air mass pattern is currently milder than climatology and not a sustained cold regime. But the lowest minimum temperature map reminds us of the seasonality. The north is still cold. The coldest 15-day lows across far northern China and Inner Mongolia are still in that deep sub-freezing range, with the harshest values kind of near the northern border. Central and eastern China are much less extreme, and southern China stays mostly above freezing at night, especially along the south coast. So the big picture, milder than normal nights overall, but winter level absolute cold remains kind of locked into the north. And the key agricultural question becomes whether the North China Plains sees a sharp outbreak style dip that crosses crop relevant thresholds. So let's have a quick regional breakdown, and if I pronounce any of the names incorrectly, I apologize. Starting in the far north in Heilongjiang, Jinlin, and northern Inner Mongolia, the lowest overnight lows are firmly in kind of true winter territory. Even with positive departures, absolute minima are still extremely cold in this belt. For agriculture, that's less about winter wheat and more about kind of baseline cold resilience for any livestock or energy impacts. But it kind of sets the stage. The cold reservoir exists, even if it's not dominating further south. Moving west into Xinjiang and parts of Gansu and Qinghai, you also see some very cold overnight minima, especially in the higher terrain and interior basin. The departure pattern here still leans warmer than normal in many areas, but the elevation and kind of continental geography is keeping absolute lows low. Agricultural relevance here is more limited for wheat, but it's a reminder that cold air pool exists and can persist in the west. Focusing on our kind of core ag store line here in the North China Plains, primarily Hebei, Henan, Shandong, plus parts of Anhui and Jiangsu. On the plain and lower elevations, this is kind of winter wheat heartland and the area that we're most interested in. On the departure map, this region is mostly warmer than normal overnight and generally on the order of a couple degrees. That's supportive in the sense that it reduces the frequency and intensity of overnight lows. On the lowest minimum map, the North China Plain looks cold enough to be winter, but it's not uniformly severe. You're generally dealing with sub-freezing nights, with the coldest pockets more likely towards the northern and inland edges, kind of closer to northern Hebei and towards the transition into Inner Mongolia. The less severe as you head southeast towards Henan, northern Anhui, and northern Jiangsu. This is where it's important to be precise with the kind of messaging here. Warmer than normal doesn't mean no risk. And we have seen kind of forecasts change very rapidly. So there isn't a problem here. For winter wheat, risk comes from the combination of kind of crop condition and a sudden cold shock. If planting was delayed and stands are not well established, the crop is less resilient. And the winter wheat had a poor planting season to begin with. So a brief period that might be manageable in a normal year can become a yield risk, even though it looks okay from a departure perspective. Shifting northeast along the coast through Liaoning, and towards the Bohai and Yellow Sea region coastal corridor, overnight temperatures are modest, somewhat by the water. But the coldest lows are still well below freezing inland. Departures are, again, mostly positive, which suggests that the coast is not under a prolonged cold pattern. In the middle and lower Yangtze corridor, Hebei, Henan, and Jiangxi, and towards Zhejiang, overnight lows are much less threatening. The lowest minimums are generally around freezing or above freezing, depending on the exact location, and the departure pattern remains mostly warmer than normal. From an ag perspective, this is more about winter vegetables, rapeseed, early season field prep rather than a hard freeze threat. Finally, in the far south, Guangdong, Guangxi, Fujian, and Henan, the coldest overnight lows stay mild relative to the north, even if there are cooler days and kind of the lower minimum map suggests there's no widespread hard freeze signal down here. And the positive departures kind of reinforce that. So in terms of kind of implications, what does this mean for agriculture and specifically winter wheat in the North China Plain? The key takeaway here is in the next 15 days, the temperature kind of leans milder than normal overnight, which is generally constructive for a crop that needs steady conditions to recover from a poor establishment. However, the lowest minimum map kind of confirms that we're still seeing those sub-freezing nights and they're still on the table. And it could take some, a very small weather episode to start pushing that cold air further south. For wheat, it's still into kind of winter underdevelopment, and the main risk is kind of a short, sharp, cold outbreak that could push into the plain and be more damaging for multiple nights. It could be a real issue. Practically, this is a setup where you want to keep watching the forecast trend. You want to keep watching cold minimum clusters over that Hebei, Henan, Shandong area, especially if those coldest lows start expanding southwards and intensifying. If that happens, it's the kind of event that could turn a very fragile crop, which it is right now, into a big production hit, and we could see 10 to 15% yield penalization. So if you like this video and you'd like to see more, please like and subscribe to the Weather Mapping YouTube channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Laters.